In a previous lesson I showed you the radial values from the gradient texture. That was just the basic, and I will in this course create a polygon out of that radial value using a cosine. So let's try it right now by adding the texture coordinate. So Shift A, input, and we will use the texture coordinate. And we can use the UVs as normal, so I will first do a vector math. So I add subtract, and then we use the multiply, so just copy Shift D, and I take the UV to the subtract and the vector from the subtract to the multiply. So we have that in, I change this to 0.5 and change this to 2. Just in this case, we can of course use the object as well right into the gradient texture, so it will be the same result. It's up to you. I use these even if it's longer because the object output is not always something that you can find in other softwares like Unreal or Unity or so on. So by using the UV you get a standardized solution even if it's a little bit longer. Okay, now continue with the task here, and that is to add a gradient texture. So Shift A, texture, and we put in the gradient here. And we change the type into radial and put that in here. And now I would like this to be, if I show you the render view now, get this into separate parts by using an input value. So I will add an input value here, Shift A, input, and use the value. And as normal we divide it, so Shift A, and then I take a converter and a math and divide 1 by the value you put in here. So let's say that we would like to have 5 sides on our polygon, then we put 5 here. And then we have to fix it so you get it in 5 pieces, and that you do with modulo. So go to converter, math, put that in, you can use the factor here instead, and change this to modulo. And take the divide in here, so we have 5 pieces. And as normal we would like it to be smooth on both sides, so we use a ping pong node here. So copy Shift D, change to ping pong, and divide by 2 the value that you get from this, and put that to the ping pong, and you get the smooth value in here. So then you have done this, and we will use cosine together with our length here to make straight lines here, because normally if I just put in the length you get like circular or spherical shapes out here, but if I put in the angle in the cosine, then we can get a straight edge instead of that circular. But then we also need to have the correct input, and that will be that we convert the input here to radians, and we also have to tell how many sides that we have, and then we can use that value to put in here. So let me just show you. So what we do is just take one of these, Shift D to copy, and then I change the first one to 360 degrees, which is one round, one circle in normal degrees, and then we put our input value like this, and then we have to convert it into radians, and that we can do with a multiply, or we can use the built-in function that we have. So we can go to converter, math, and here you have 2 radians. So we just put that in here, and then we get the value out here that we can multiply this with. So if I now press Shift A, converter, math, put that in, put the multiply here, and put this to radians, then I get a good value to work with when I should work with cosine to get the straight lines here. So now I can add my cosine here, so I just take a copy of this and change it to cosine, like that. And you can't hardly see anything here, but there is something in. And now I need a length, so I press Shift A, converter, math, and first of all a multiply here, so we can multiply what we put in, and then I take converter, vector math, put a length here, and use the output from the multiply to the length, and this to the multiply here. And now we have something in here, but we need to do a little bit more before we add these together. So we add a multiply here as well, and take the value from the input into the multiply here. So now you can see that it's looking more like a star. And in the end here, we also round the value out in some way, and we can use just round, or we can use compare. So if I now put in round here, you will see what's happened. So Shift A, converter, math, and I put in round. And suddenly you have everything finished as it should be. So not so much to do, but can be a bit hard to crack that you should use the cosine and the conversion from the degrees here to radians and put that into the cosine as well. But with this you can then get the values out, and if you change this to like 6, you get 6 sides. If you change it to 12 sides, you get 12 sides, and so on. So that is how it works. And as I said, we can use the compare here as well. So Shift A, converter, math, and if I change this into compare, then I can put this in the top and this in the bottom, and I can then change this to a very small value, and then you get a ring instead of filled. And then you can also control the size here, so you get it in like that, and you can of course then change this as well. And as this is like a complete side here, you should not use decimals here, because then you get like this. So it should be only complete numbers. So if you want to do this really clean, then you can of course, as usual, put in a floor here that will cut all the decimals away. But this is the main way to do it. So those two, just to get the gradient in the center, and then you use the radial that you know now that is like circular, that goes from 0 to 1. You split it up in that many amount that you put in as a value. We use ping pong to go back when we have reached half the value, and then to get the cosine to work, we need to put in the amount of the angle, which will be like 6 in this case. So we will have like 6 pieces. 360 divided by 6 will be 6 pieces of the circle. Change it to radius, put that in here, and then we also need to put in the amount of sides that we're using, and then that will be perfect for the cosine, and then it's just to multiply with the length, so we get something that cuts up the pieces in this direction as well, so it doesn't go into infinity. And after that, it's just to present the result in some good way, using its round or compare or something else that will see where the difference are between the values that goes out from the center. Okay, so hopefully you learned something in this lesson as well, and as usual I will just see you in the next. So bye for now.